Welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on for a lot of reasons. One of the things that I haven't talked very much about, but will be talking about, is an energy. And the energy is inspired. That's the word. And I think I got to give Jessica credit for that word. As we were on the plane and we were coming back, and just down to LA for a short trip, really struck by how many people, when you're flying like over the LA, right? Pete and Pete's my very special guest today. Coach Pete Cafarchio is joining me here today. Cafarchio is joining me here today. And one of the things I want to say about Pete is that we live in the Manhattan area. So let's just say Manhattan. But when you fly over Newark, you don't even comment on the Newark thing. But Pete, I know you're like, why is she talking Newark? But that's what people do. They fly over Newark and everybody thinks like Jersey is like Newark, right?
Yep.
And then they hit New York, all the lights, right? All the lights, all the shiny, and even in the daytime, it's kind of spectacular, don't you think, Coach Pete?
Absolutely. That's why we moved here.
Yeah. LA is a little different because you're flying in to the LA, and what happens is you get a glimpse of the mountains where people have their homes or whatever that is. But then you start to see house by house by house by house by house. I could not believe, I went to school there, Pete, and I got to tell you, Coach Pete, I got to tell you, it was busy then. I just didn't know how many people you could put in a square mile, right? And I thought about today's show, and I was thinking about this as we were flying in, whatever we were looking at. And I thought to myself, I know we're getting ready to talk about making the switch to your dream career today. And I am very interested in the work you do with other people about this, Coach Pete, because one of the things that I know and have looked at in my life pretty much is how much I think I'm in control of something and how little I really am. But one thing for sure, you as the coach, as somebody that helps people in corporate as well as individuals, you have years in high tech companies, you work for nonprofit. How does that even happen, by the way? How do you go from high tech to nonprofit? I want to hear that story. But you've run the gamut. And yet today you're working with people on this very sticky issue, if I might say. And what is so sticky about the issue? What's sticky about the issue is the following. Believe it or not, many of you may or may not even want to think about what it means to make the switch to your dream career. That's what Pete's got. Pete, let's talk about this, Coach Pete, for a minute, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks. It's a real privilege to be here.
Whether you live in one of these big cities, and the reason that I brought it up is because if you're living in the big cities, sometimes you feel like you are invisible. Do you know what I mean, Pete? You live in Manhattan.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. You feel like I'm never going to make a difference here. And then if you live in the Midwest, you're kind of thinking the same thing, but not for the same reason. Tell me about your career path, your journey, and what was going on for you? What were the things that you thought about as you move forward?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm raised in a lower middle class, large family. There's 8 kids in my family, and pretty much the career path, I was good at math and science. So the career path my parents encouraged me on was, hey, go be an engineer. So I did. I went to engineering school, paid for it myself, went to a private school and got a bachelor's in civil and environmental engineering. Because it was good at math and science. It's a steady job, should always pay well. And I only did that for 2 years out of college because I was bored stiff. I was stuck behind a desk, not enough people contact. And, And I just felt like my adult world was just closing, and it said, this is what you're going to be sentenced to for the rest of your life. And at the same time, I was engaged, met the local girl, and we're still happily married. But I was looking, an opportunity came our way, and we we like tossed our career. She was at IBM. I was a budding engineer, and we took a 75% pay cut and went to work at a nonprofit ministry. We went to live in a large boarding home with like 100 people, taking care of people with mental illness, mental retardation, really living as a community. These were high functioning people. A lot of them had been homeless or maybe in the state hospital. And we just invested ourselves there. We thought we'd do it for a year and a half. 2 kids later, and 8 years later, we were there for 8 years. And it was a great place because I got to try a lot of different things. And for people, young people who want to know, oh, what's the right path for me? How do I follow my passion? You have to try a lot of different things. You have to try them on. And this was a great environment for us because I was a cook. I was cleaning toilets. I was mowing the grass. But what I wound up doing after just 6 months is I wound up doing their fundraising and public relations. And I had to learn it from scratch. No one at the organization had done it before. And it was just hand in glove. I fell right into it.
And look at you now. And the reason I wanted you to share this is because you and I have similar paths. When I moved to Seattle, I couldn't get a job here. And, for a lot of reasons, but this is a very tight community here. Seattle is one of those little big cities or big little cities, right?
Sure.
But everybody knows everybody. And that's how things work here. And when you're new to Seattle, unless you come here for a job, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of, making your way. But I did the same thing you did. I volunteered in my first, right out of the gate, I lived on Capitol Hill, and I volunteered for what we called the Chicken Soup Brigade. And in the kitchen, stuffing turkey, whatever that was to get food to people. How did that shape you? Right. I can only imagine, but I'd love to hear a bit about how you changed inside.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was a great community to be a part of. The first thing I learned, we showed up to quote unquote help people, and within a month you realize, OMG, I need help too.
Yeah.
We all need each other. You realize your own brokenness, and that community is so important to that. I think the other thing is, I had a lot of ambition and a lot of drive as a young guy. And I think without that 8 years, I could have just charged right ahead into corporate and probably not nearly valued people nearly as enough as I do now, because I learned about the humanity of everyone and everyone struggling with things. And it really, I think, sensitized me to that. And I needed to. I needed that myself. Plus, like I said, it was a great opportunity to kind of stretch my wings and learn a lot. But it was super formative years for us. And, it's kind of the golden age of our marriage and our young family.
Yeah. Did you have moments? I can think of a moment that I had when I was delivering turkey on a Thanksgiving to somebody that had HIV. And I remember I was so eager to do this. My gosh, what this did for me, for my soul, in that time where I didn't have a job, like a job, right? That what it did, I can't even describe it. I think about it, I feel like crying when I think about it. But there were moments where I learned lessons I wouldn't have learned. So, for example, the day I delivered turkey to somebody who opened it up in front of me and just cried. And his comment to me was simple. And this is what he said. And we both started to cry. He said, this may not sound much, but here's what he said. He sat there, opened up the turkey, and we were supposed to stay to make sure people were okay, and opened up the turkey and looked at it. And the heat, right, was still coming off the food.
Okay.
And he just looked at me and he said, the turkey's hot. And I thought, little things like this we take for granted. And I said, yes. I said, we have a goal that we have to get from the time we get it to a person's house in this area within 6 minutes. And he said, I've never eaten a hot meal. Every meal that's been given to me
Wow.
and delivered has
Wow.
never been hot. And
So that's about dignity right there.
oh man, and I know you had to learn something like that. Tell me a little bit. What were some of those pivotal
Oh
moments
my
for you?
goodness. Oh, there were so many. One's coming to mind right now. I was kind of doing like 2 or 3 jobs. We all worked really hard there, and we all played real hard. Most of the staff lived right in this big old boarding home. And I remember at one time, I think I was having seasonal affective disorder, which I get every fall. And I was trying a bunch of things, and I just kind of crashed somewhat. I mean, not permanently, but I had a rough time. And there was this one guy, his name was Ralph, like late 60s. And I knew him. He lived on my floor, and, we weren't close or anything. Like, he's just kind of a nice guy, kind of in the shadows. And he saw me walking down the hall, and he just came up to me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he just looked at me. He didn't know all my situation or anything, but you could probably read it on my face. And he goes, "It's going to be all right, Pete. It's going to be all right." And it was his tone of voice and everything. And it just was such a flip for me, because I was working really hard to love on these people and do all these things. And here I was in need, and someone who I least expected came and gave me, my soul, exactly what it needed at the time, which
Mm,
at the time was acceptance, and just a realization that things were going to work out. And it felt so wonderful. It was very humbling, but it felt really great.
wow. We're just touching upon some of the things we're going to talk about today because, people may be thinking, how does this relate to making the switch to your dream career? And I have to tell you, you're going to hear today how very, very important it is to really look at the things we're about to talk about today, because making the switch has so much to do about who you are, what your journey's been, what may have happened before, and
Exactly
what
right.
your true desires are. Pete, before we go to break, how can people find out more about Coach Pete?
Yeah, so please come and visit me on my website at petecoaching.com. There's some career specific info on there. If you go under services, you'll see that on the menu. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me there.
And how about your radio show?
Oh, yeah, Dynamic Destiny Radio here on Transformation Talk Radio. Yeah, and that's on my website too. Plus, you can go to dynamicdestinyradio.com. And yeah.
Dynamic Destiny Radio,
Woohoo!
folks. Let's take a short break. When we come back, here's what I want to ask everybody, because I want you to call in or say something on social media, Facebook, if you hear me okay. 1-800-930-2819. Are you ready? Are you ready to receive your dynamic destiny today? Coach Pete and me. We'll be right back. Wow, welcome back. Welcome back. Look, I had to have this conversation today because of an event that happened in my life last week. And this is about making the switch to your dream career. And I am so grateful Coach Pete is joining me here today. And there's a reason. His show Dynamic Destiny, but beyond being like out of the box to help you with things, what I want to say is there is an energy sometimes that will hold you back. And I talked about this last week, Pete. There's an energy that holds people back. And that energy that would hold us back would be the energy of doubt, and it might even be the energy of fear. But what Coach Pete does in helping people tune in, plug in, and launch forward into their own unique dynamic destiny is he has been through the range of it. I mean, you just heard him talk about, what he did in order to understand the humility that it takes to work with another person. And I can't say that enough. Those of us that work one on one or with groups, we have had a level of humility that has been on our doorsteps for a point in our journey that it's so hard to describe. That's what makes Pete good at what he does. I mean, you heard him. He cleaned toilets, he cooked food, right?
I wash my hands between those.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah. And that was probably before we had that squirty stuff, right?
It was.
That's I got to say, that's a good one. But here we are, Pete. I was really struck by how people struggle so hard because they have a dream and their current situation is miserable. And the answer isn't always quit that job and jump into this.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
In the journey that we go on, and you've had a bunch of different careers, how do you help people either take the leap or create the leap path, so to speak?
That is a great question, Dr. Pat. And maybe a good way to do that is to just tell a story.
Yeah.
So one of my clients, he's a high tech IT guy, and facing ageism. Okay, and this guy has some big wins in his background. He was working for a global pharmaceutical company here in New Jersey, and he was the go-to guy. I mean, he was keeping the lights on and everybody relied on him. But through acquisitions, downsizing, what have you, all of a sudden he's in this job that's not well paying and he's not being well respected and he's fitting into this slot and he's miserable. And one of the things I do as a coach is try to tap into their dynamic destiny. And how do we know those things? Well, it's written kind of in you. Your purpose in life is expressed through your unique talents. And I have 5 real quick questions I ask people. We'll go deeper into these when I coach them, but I say, ask yourself, do some reflection. What have I really enjoyed in my past? What really makes me come alive? Second, ask others because they can often see you better than you can see yourself. Third, I say ask science. So I have my clients take different assessments because they reveal things and give you a language to understand your talents better. Fourth, I say ask a professional, and that would be me, a coach, or anyone else who can really is skilled at these things. And fifth, I say ask God. Pray about it. If you were born to make a difference in the world and there's a purpose for your life, don't you think he's like wants you to know that? So ask him, and he's going to show you. It might not be instant lightning bolt, but it'll become clearer if that's truly your desire. So I work with Jim on that, and there's a process and things that we go through. And so my client, he identified the number one thing. You talk about the negative energy that was making him so miserable. Partly it was the pay, but we identified one of his important values for him. And when I say values, I don't always mean moral values.
Right.
So just what do you value as a person? Respect was really important to him. He didn't need the title so much, but he wanted respect. And he had some of those. One time, the CEO and the CIO of this global pharmaceutical company said to him, I sleep better at night because you're at the controls. And that was such affirmation for him. And, he got an office and things. And it wasn't, if you met the guy, he's just really a normal kind of down to earth guy. But that was important to him. He wasn't getting at his current job. Once he identified that, and then part two was, don't let your job define your self-worth. That is so, so, so important. Realize you have something to offer, and you're not a slave of the system. Okay, you can feel that way, but that's up to you, your mentality. You can either say, oh, this is the only opportunity I have. I can't make a jump because I make too much money here or whatever. And you feel rotten, and your boss doesn't appreciate you, or you don't get along with your coworkers, or it's a bad fit. It doesn't line up with your talents. You're not succeeding. A lot of reasons. Man, life is short, and to live in a situation like that for so long is really, really just grind you down. Then you don't have energy to go look.
No.
Right? Because you're just exhausted. Your soul is exhausted. And so then we work on that and say, you have a unique set of capabilities. And when we ask those 5 questions that I talked about before, people start to get clarity. Like, oh, you know what? Or that question that you asked, even in your intro, what would you do if you couldn't fail? Right. And they start to see, you know what? I kind of feel like I was born to do this, but I'm not getting any opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, you can get out there and start to talk about that, but no one can help you if you can't describe what you want to do. And that's so important, is getting that clarity and saying, I do this right now, but, and then we start talking, coaching. What we start to identify is, you have skills. Sometimes a lot of people I've seen people pulling in $250K and higher, thinking the only job they can do is the one they're currently in.
Yeah.
And we have to help them understand, you have acquired skills that can be used in a lot of other situations. They're called transferable skills, but you've never took the time to kind of catalog those and go through. And once they see this, it's like, oh, wait a minute, budgeting is the same almost at every place. I can do budgeting. Great. I can delegate well. Great. That's a transferable skill. I can envision or write down of it. I can keep people in order. I'm good at shuffling priorities. Whatever it is, these are really powerful. Then when you take that, those skills, start to map it up with what you really think you want to be doing, this, all of a sudden they start to get the energy. And then still don't necessarily take a leap. I have taken a few leaps. Okay. They don't have to take a leap. There's ways you can gradually move into that.
Yeah.
I went through this process myself. We talked about that.
I was just going to say, you and I can talk about this because we've actually gone through it ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm still alive. Look at this. Yeah. I lived through it. You will survive.
And one of the things I want to talk with you about when we come back is, let's just call it the dynamic destiny chain of events for a moment. And when we come back, one of the things I want to talk about is how something shows up. You and I have talked about this, about the radio show. Something shows up and you think to yourself, I did not ask for this, because we're not focused on the possibilities surrounding the desire. Or when something shows up, it may be a step towards something, right? But we get so in the moment of ungrateful for whatever the thing is, because it doesn't look like the new shiny job or the book deal or whatever that is, that we don't see it with fresh eyes. And you and I talked about this. I started a mantra, and it had to be about 7 years ago or so, because my friend Deb Engel wrote a book. And when I got the book, I almost picked up the phone, Pete, and called her back and said, Deb, and I hadn't even read the book. I almost said, wait a minute, this can't be right. This book called The Only Little Prayer You Need. And I said, I haven't read the book, but I'm telling you, it can't be, blah, 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 blah. And then I read the book and I realized it could be. But what is that thing that we forget to do in moments of despair, disappointment, or things that look like they're not getting us to where we are? When we come back, we're going to talk about the elements of dynamic destiny so that you can see the chain of events that are happening right in front of you. Because this is what Pete sees every day, things that are happening in front of you, and how Pete helps the people he works with understand they're all part of the divine plan. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. Thank you for doing that. Coach Pete is my very special guest today, and also fabulous host of the crazy good show, Dynamic Destiny Radio. But before we jump on that, I think we're talking about a lot of things, Pete, and I want to make sure, Pete, if people have your contact information.
Sure.
So either they could ask a question during your shows, or they could get a hold of you directly. What's the best way for people to do that?
Okay. So visit my website, petecoaching.com. Email me anytime, askpete@petecoaching.com. And then we're talking about career here. And I have some pages dedicated to a career journey on my website. Just go to the menu and under services, you'll see career. And I do a lot of one-on-one individual coaching with people looking to make a career transition, whether whether it's by choice or sometimes they're forced into it because they got laid off or something. And then, hey, if one-on-one coaching isn't your thing, or maybe you don't think you can swing it, maybe you're not, you haven't seen the power of coaching yet. I do a group coaching for career as well, a group coaching seminar. It's 4 1-hour sessions and 4 half-hour sessions spread out over 8 different weeks. And we all do the homework together. You don't get as much one-on-one attention from me, but you're like on a webcast type of a thing, and you see the other people, and we all work together and make new friends and kind of all work together. It's lower in price, but it's a kind of a different scenario, but a lot of people got success out of that as well.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So Pete, thank you for today, and thank you for joining me today. I've had some things happen in my life, and what they appear to be sometimes is not the thing I expected to get me to where I want to go. They just don't. They didn't. But what I've learned is that as I look back, and I think I got the lesson after 1 or 2 events like this, where I said, "Oh, there may be something else coming." Like, oh, sometimes things show up that don't look like they are the next step for us to get where do we want to go. Can you talk about that for a little bit, and how you coach people to see? And my friend Deb, when she wrote the book, The Only Little Prayer You Need, once I figured out that what she said the prayer was as simple as thank you, God. And it depends on what the thing is. It's just thank you, God. If you can't say anything else about what shows up, that's what you say.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we don't. Sometimes we look at something and say, what the bleep is that? Tell us about that. And has
Yeah.
that happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. Many, many times. Dr. Pat, I think one of the things we confuse is the trappings of what we say is desire with what truly is a heart's desire. And we get those confused, and we say, if I ask someone, hey, what's your desire for career? Oh, I want a great job that pays, $200,000 and great health insurance and all vacation time and stuff. And those are the trappings. But what's your heart's desire? Well, stability. I don't want to have, big financial concerns. Well, guess what? If you have financial concerns now, you're going to have it when you have more money too. That's a different issue. But what's your true heart's desire? And for most people, that's baked into you. It's different for each person of how can you make a difference, and how can you use your talent. And when you come alive and you get into your zone, we get blinded to that because we're told this narrative over and over again. This is what success looks like, and there's these icons through the media and all that. We lock onto those things. Then, as you were saying, these opportunities come to us. And by the way, an opportunity rarely comes in a nice gift box with a bow on it and a tag directly to you, exactly what you want. It doesn't look like that. It's usually just the next step, and you don't even know it's the next step until you follow that path. And some of it doesn't always work out, but a lot of times it does. And there's this phrase that I really like. It says, God's will is best understood in hindsight. And how many of us can say that looking back on my life? Wow, this
no
was a
question.
twist and this is a twist and a turn. Didn't really work out the way I thought, or but I'm really glad it did. In fact, there was a song out about a decade ago. God bless the broken road that led me straight to you. And that's the way our lives are. When you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like a blessing and it doesn't feel like guidance. But try things, because if you overthink it and if you're too wrapped up and focused on something super specific, you're going to miss the bigger picture. And it could be that God's trying to bless you with something that's really going to satisfy you, and you'll be much happier. I'll give you a couple examples of this with some of my clients when it comes to career. And I do want to say this, how fast this happens sometimes when we work to get clarity with my clients, and really, what do you want? Well, I want this. Yeah, but really what's under? And I'm always going for that desire thing underneath. I had this one guy, he was stuck in an IT job, bored, hour and a half commute one way, forget it. Right. and he was stuck there. And he was really frustrated because he saw the role of what the chief information officer really could be in an organization. And he said, it's not what's happening in my organization. And when he started to talk to me, I could just tell there was something real legit about that. There was that energy in him, and he came alive. And I pressed into it and I said, what do you really want? What do you really want? And finally he said, I want to be a CIO with that vision. And I leaned into him and said, well, why aren't you going for it? Why aren't you looking for opportunities and starting to talk to people about that? And you could just see he was afraid because it sounded a little radical at the time. And, we coached through it. His goal was to get a job in 6 months, and he would just take anything if it was closer. In 3 weeks, he had the job. He was functioning as the CIO with that new vision in a completely different industry. But that's how fast it happened. Once he got clarity, then he could start to take steps. And Dr. Pat, I think sometimes, there's the providential aspect of it, but there's something else too. I think maybe these opportunities are coming to us at times, but because we don't have clarity, we don't know how to spot them or to get that. Some people say there's like a vibration to it, or there's like, I don't know why. I just looked twice at that. It's like, I'm just intrigued by that. I'm going to go at least take a step, folks. Take a step. You don't have to have it all figured out, but go try and you'll see what comes.
Yeah. Look, here's a specific example. And one of the things I do, Pete talked about this, I lay out our full year of, okay, what do we want? I do it at multiple levels. One is, what service will I do this year? That I also do, what will we do to advance the level of our host? I lay that out. And then this year I was looking at myself, and what I said is, I want to get back to some of the things. Once our technology is finished, I want to get back to being out and sharing a message of positivity. And that's all I wrote. But I kind of said kind of the way I used to do it, but I wasn't clear. And it was fascinating because this year was filled with hiccups, but you can't plan this. So here it is, Pete. I want you to comment on this. And I think we'll go ahead and skip the next break. I want you to comment on this. I laid this stuff out, and we had a little hiccup with the programmer we hired about our new technology. But we found out about 3 weeks ago, Merrick, our current programmer, somehow cleared his slate of what he had to do, and he was available to super expedite this. And my gosh, don't you want the person that helped build what you have to really rebuild it and upgrade it? But once that was done, and once we got the agreement and we all said yes, something strange happened, and maybe not strange. So what happened was, I get a call out of the blue from somebody that I worked with 8 years ago, Jane. And she said something like, I want you to be part of this thing. And I emailed her. And what she did was, 8 years later, her dream came true to set up a nonprofit that's about love and love notes, right? And then somehow she partnered with a young man to write a song about love. And the young man, Tata Prince, happens to be the nephew of John Legend.
Oh, wow.
And within days, Jane sends me a list, and my name, and I just said, yeah, I'll be part of what is it? But I didn't know it was like October 1st. There was like 5 days and it's October 1st, and you got to wear white. And I get and I see my name, Pete, on the list of people that I never thought I'd be on. And within 2 days, and by the way, then she wants us to do interviews. So I dragged Jessica. Within 2 days, I found myself talking to people like Alfre Woodard, and talking to people like, in John Legend, Beyonce's parents. And then I find myself on stage doing a music video. Now, I did not ask for that, right?
Were you a dancer?
I am a good dancer.
Yeah.
Thank God. And I think Jessica's got some pictures. But then John's best friend, Tony, says, you need to come on stage. So here we are. You can't plan this.
No.
Can't find white in the Pacific Northwest if your life depended on it. But thank you, Hannah, at Nordstrom's Rack from hunting in the back of the room to find me an outfit that Jessica's going to post. But you see, I could have said no to that, Pete. So I want you to talk to this for a minute because everything in my mind was like, wow, we're moving into new space on the first. Wow, my gosh, we just made an investment. Wow, the tickets, the hotel. Am I going to find that? Almost got put in the no, I don't think I can go. Help us with this because people are getting things delivered to them and they're coming up with reasons not to do it. How do you help people
Yeah,
with
that's right.
that?
It's so there's another. I love little quips and quotes and idioms. You might have heard this when the best fruit is out on a limb. The best fruit is out on, and it's true. That's the way apples grow. It's at the
true.
end, and you have to go out on a limb if you want to get the fruit. And so we just get all safe, and we're just programmed habit, used to saying no all the time. Oh, there's risk. Hey, there's so many things that aren't a big risk. It's all you have to do is just give a little bit of time or explore something new. Dr. Pat, there's one other point that I want to emphasize in your last story that's
Sure.
really important for career search, because the way to get a job, a good job, is through networking. Okay. If you're looking at job postings and things like that, you're going to get really discouraged. It's demeaning. These job descriptions, only Jesus could fill these job descriptions. They're crazy. And if you've been on the hiring side, it doesn't work that way anyway. They're just putting out this standard thing. But if you're the right candidate, they'll even change the job description to get you in. But the best jobs are found before those get posted. And how are you going to get those? It's through networking. Now, when I bring up networking, so many people just disqualify themselves. Oh, I'm not that outgoing. I don't know that many people. And there's a couple practical points I want to bring up, and your story plays right into this. First of all, you have to believe that people want to help you. And you just give people the benefit that they do want to help you. Okay. If somebody came to you and said, hey, could you help me? Do gave you a very specific request and you could help them? Of course you'd do that. Somebody's out of work. Nobody wants to see that. They want to help you. So that's the first thing, is believe that. Second, you got to help them help you. So you have to be specific in your ask. Okay. It's terrible if somebody comes up to me, hey, I'm out of work right now. Can you know anything that's open? I was like, oh yeah, but like, what do you want to do? And I don't know if it's going to be fit. And I'm not going to make that introduction for you if you're coming across like Mr. or Miss Vague. Okay. But if you said, hey, Pete, you know what? I'm in a career transition right now. And I know that I really want to be in, I do a lot of IT guys, so I'll just do that again. I want to be in IT specifically. I like to oversee a group, and I especially like to train younger people and developing them in a career in systems administration. And I like to work for a company that's about 500 people in it or less, and somewhere in a 50-mile radius. Oh, now I think I could help you, because or at least I'm going to be thinking about it. And next time I see somebody with that opportunity, I'll put you in touch with them. But here's the point. The third point of networking: it's not who you know. It's not. You always hear that. Oh, it's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who they know.
Right.
That is the power. And that was your story. You didn't know all these people who are like producing a music video and all these other things, but they knew other people. It's not who you know, it's who they know. And if all you need to do, get specific on your ask and have one phrase that really talks about when you do meet the right person, what your value is. And with my friend that I was telling you about before, you know what? He actually changed his story. He changed his LinkedIn profile, and he said, the CEO of a global pharmaceutical company once said, I sleep better at night because you're at the controls. That was it. It says so much. That's huge value. This guy's reliable. He's trustworthy. He can
oh my
handle a lot.
gosh.
And it just sings, it just tells the whole story. So don't be afraid of networking. Okay. You can do it, and start anywhere in an organization. You don't have to know like exactly the hiring managers. Just start talking and say, well, I really like your company. This is, by the way, this is another great way. Don't go looking for, oh, they don't have an opening, I'm not going to go for it. Well, is a company that you like their value, say, I really like your company. I'm really interested in, hey, would you mind talking? I just said 10 minutes. I just have some questions for you. And then you say, well, this is what I do. If there's ever a good fit here, I think I'd really, I'd really love to help make a difference at your company. Well, you know what? Wow. It's funny you should say that because somebody just put in their notice, and I'm not sure how long it'll take, but probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. But this is how this works. Okay. It's getting your message out there. A lot of us on probably your listeners have heard of the law of attraction.
Yes.
But it's not the lazy person's way out. That's one thing.
Oh,
that's the
no.
downside of that, right? We don't want to be thinking that way. It's about getting clarity and being specific on what you want and what you can do, how you can serve others too. If you're clear on that, it's amazing the opportunities that open up.
Yeah. The thing I love about what you're talking about is, and I want to also talk about what you work with people to see. We can't all see this, Pete. And what I mean by that is I can't see it in me. I mean, I can't see these things. That's why I have people that I go to help me. And I think that's one of the things I want to make sure people understand about the work you do. And that is you help people see things that for whatever reason we may be a little blinded about,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Especially, Dr. Pat, on my first show, I talked about this on Dynamic Destiny Radio. We think about blind spots, and it's usually in a negative connotation, like, oh, you have a bad habit and you're just blind to it. So many people are blind to their exceptional talents as well, because it came easy to them and they didn't have to work real hard for it. They just dismiss it. Oh, everyone can do that. No, not everyone has the ability to find the exact right phrase when always that person, they always know exact right thing to say when we're stuck in our marketing or writing up a message. Or not everyone can juggle the balls like you do and just make it, the new process when a curveball comes and you just know how to make it keep working. Oh, well, no, anyone can do that. It's not a big deal. That's a blind spot. That is a big deal. You're exceptional at it, and you need to understand it, celebrate it, highlight it, and actually lead with that, because you want to be in a job that uses those talents. That's when you become alive. And the title of this episode is about your dream career. Like, your dream career is not about gobs and gobs of money. I learned that in my first 2 years working as an engineer. And
Did you?
I did. I was making for a guy my age, I was making good money. And after 2 years, I was like, I'm really unhappy, and money is not the answer. And I saw it. Like, I was 23 years old when I learned that lesson. I had it happen again in a different career stint. I made more money than I had ever made in my adult career. And when I left after 4 years, and I was like, I can't think of anything significant that I've accomplished here.
Yeah.
And it was so empty. And so your dream is where you can get in your zone, where you come fully alive, where you're using your gifts and talents, and you're in an environment that you're moving the ball forward in a way that you believe in and that you really want to contribute to. That's satisfaction. That's fulfillment. And I'll tell you what, those are the people who can't wait to get to work on Monday morning.
And one thing you said, and I know we've got a few minutes, but I want to ask you about it. This didn't happen overnight for me, right? I mean, I got booted out of a corporate job 6 months away from a pension because I refused to fire somebody that had 29 years, 11 months of service. And if you're a director, executive director, HR in a Fortune 100 company, you don't do that. But I couldn't. Something happened to me during that time. Wow. But I knew that it had to be divinely guided. But here's the thing. I didn't get to this place from there to here. Isn't it true that sometimes if you're that miserable in your job, you may have to look for another job on the pathway to your destiny?
Absolutely.
And
A
just
stepping
don't say,
stone.
yeah.
It's
But
a
people
stepping stone.
think, oh my God, I'm lousy over here. I just want to live my dream. But wait a minute. You got to take care of the lousy thing, the abuse first.
Or it's going to follow you. Guess what? You're going to wind up in another. You'll attract it. I did that myself. I really did. How I got into coaching, I was full time at an IT startup. By the way, I did 22 years in high tech startups after the nonprofit, and now I've been a full time coach for 3 years. I started part time coaching on the side gig, huge trend right now, especially with people that are middle age and older. For 3 years. And I got trained, I got educated, got some certifications, started practicing, started getting some paying clients as I was ramping up. And then when it was time to flip the switch, went full time. And
thank you.
Yeah, there are ways to do this, but start small.
Thank you. But here's the thing. I hope you're going to do a show on this. And I know we got to run. I hope you're going to do a show on, like, what if your job really stinks and your boss is abusive? I mean, does that get in the way from your next step to your dream? But you nailed it. If you leave a job as a victim, so to speak.
Oh man, that's a mouthful right there. You're gonna attract it another time. You've got to
even in your dream. Even if you go, I'm going to start my dream, but you're taking that with you. You are going to take the victim energy to your dream, and that is not dynamic destiny. Pete, one last question. Thank you for today. What's your personal message? What do you want to leave us with today?
Okay, this is it. You need to believe this. You really are God's gift to the world. Okay. And we all need you to be your best version of yourself, because without that, we're missing out on what we're supposed to get from you. You are God's gift to the world.
Boy, I'll say that is the energy of dynamic destiny. Pete, thank you so much. Coach Pete, I'm Dr. Pat. We've got to do this show on this victim energy moving forward.
It would be great.
We got to do it.
It would be great.
We got to do it. I know what it's like. Let's take a short break, everybody. Coach Pete, website, Pete, please, one more time.
PeteCoaching.com.
All right, everybody. Let's take a shorty. We'll be right back.